Pavo Barišić. Pavo Barišić, born 9 September 1959, is a Croatian philosopher and politician who served as the Minister of Science and Education in the Cabinet of Andrej Plenković from 19 October 2016 until 9 June 2017. He publishes in the field of philosophy of law, politics and democracy, history of philosophy, and bioethics. He is a member of Croatian Democratic Union. Biography. Pavo Barišić graduated from the University of Zagreb, its Faculty of Law in 1982, and its Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences in 1983. He gained a PhD degree from the University of Augsburg in 1989 with the dissertation Welt und Ethos, World and Ethos. Since 1986, he has been a research fellow at the Institute of Philosophy in Zagreb and its director between 1991 and 2001. He was a full professor at the University of Split, where he was head of the Department of Philosophy from 2005 to 2013. From 2019, he is a full professor at the University of Zagreb, and from 10 December 2019 to 16 March 2021 was a Dean of Faculty of Croatian Studies. He was an editor-in-chief of the leading Croatian and international philosophical journals Filozofske Istraživanja and Synthesis Filosofica. From 2007 to 2009, he was a president of the Croatian Philosophical Society. From 2014 until 2016, he was a president of the Croatian Humboldt Club. He was a president of the Croatian Pan-European Union for 13 years, 2003-2016, and is still Secretary General of the International Pan-European Union. In 2002-2003, he was a visiting professor at the Kwansei Gakuin University in Nishinomiya, Japan, where, together with Heiki Mine and Masakatsu Fujita, he prepared a thematic issue on philosophy in Japan. He is a recipient of the Institute of Philosophy Award for Scientific Excellence in 2015. He was a deputy minister at the Ministry of Science, Education and Sports 2004-2006. On 19 October 2016, he was appointed as the Minister of Science and Education in the Cabinet of Andrej Plenković. During an unsuccessful campaign for motion of no confidence for Minister Barišić in February 2017, amongst other accusations, allegations of self-plagiarism arose from the Croatian media. It became known that in 2011 an ethics committee at the University of Split had dismissed the allegations as ill-founded. Despite the findings of the Ethics Committee in Science and Higher Education, the highest committee for ethics in science in Croatia, that Barišić plagiarized one of his articles, the Croatian parliament voted in favor of minister with 72 votes for and 49 against. Regarding the accusation of self-plagiarism in his dissertation, in February 2018, the University of Augsburg reached the opinion that his dissertation contains considerable formal errors. However, the Commission concluded that it was not plagiarism and that it would not take any further steps against Barišić because the mistakes were not relevant. The Prime Minister Andrej Plenković stated, "Barišić deserves an apology from those who attacked him." Philosophy, World and Ethos. The main topic of the book Welt und Ethos 1992 is Hegel's attitude towards the sundown of the Occidental spiritual development. It analyses the turning point from the pinnacle of the absolute idealism to the nihilistic eclipse of the European metaphysics. In focus of its reconsideration is the concept of the world as ethos of the man, his whereabouts, abode, domicile, home, ecumene, the inhabited earth. It sheds light on Hegel's re-narration of the teleological order of events in the world history. The book finishes with a famous parable on the spirit as a seed. Through this comparison, the ambiguous and dialectical nature of Hegel's view emerges into the broad daylight. He has proved that the Western spiritual life has attained its ripeness. After that, the ripened seed has to fall off, decay, and decline. However, Hegel's position differs substantially from the nihilism that followed it. Thus, he does not consider only one side of the completion of the spirit in the world. The development does not end in the sheer ruination of the thousands years' work of the spirit in the world. From the ripened fruit arises a new seed, a new principle and life. Erwin Hufnagel explains that this study propounds all substantial parts of Hegel's philosophy and takes into consideration the relevant secondary literature with a rare systematic potency and impressive capability of differentiation. Ethical ideal of democracy. In the thematic issue on democracy and political education, edited on the 150th anniversary of John Dewey, Barišić highlights two key moral criteria that in a special way point to the superiority of the educational ideal in a democratic community over any other form of social integration. First, there is the level of common interest that is realized in a society. The second principle is that of freedom to develop new common and individual interests in various forms of association. The main question is whether the ethical ideal of humanity could be applied as a philosophical basis for the evaluation and justification of democratic practices. The study considers that Dewey's advocacy of strengthening the moral and participative democracy links in local communities was the reason why his model of democracy has found its way into the communitarian discourse. Dewey does not destroy the foundations of liberalism and democracy by emphasizing the substantial communication community common connection, but rather enriches, strengthens, and takes the same to a higher level. Deliberative democracy. In his essay on Aristotle's Thinking of the Many and Deliberation, Barišić argues against the elitist theory of democracy. His standpoint is that when citizens get together to deliberate and make common decisions, upon thoughtful consideration, they reach a cognitive and moral level which is higher than the level of a minority of experts and honorable individuals, the so-called elite, regardless of their individually achieved perfections. Barišić elaborates 5 arguments of Aristotle's in favor of the democratic deliberation of the multitude: political, ethical, dianotic, teleological, and collective responsibility. He concludes that Aristotle brought to light fundamental arguments on deliberation and the advantages of the rule of the many that are, in some way, still valid today. Politics is neither a mere procedure roles nor a purely irrational discourse Habermas. It is practical wisdom, judgment, and a matter of deliberation and pooling by the many. The ideal of the rule of the people. In his book The Ideal of the Rule of the People, Barišić reconsiders certain significant stations of the historical sailing of the ship of democracy. His central reflections are devoted to contemporary straits, cliffs and storms that democracy is facing at different meridians. Particular attention is paid to global perspectives and projections of advantages and perils that the democracy vessel is to expect in the future. Barišić argues that the great story of the rule of the people in the world has not ended yet. It continues indeed, with democracy thus being regenerated and rejuvenated. It has not withered in post-democracy. Irrespective of all the deficiencies and shortcomings which are observable in political acting, the crucial goals which politics aspires to pursue in achieving freedom, equality, justice, human rights, and the common good are something that makes politics precious and noble. The democratic path to these objectives is shorter, safer than others. Cosmopolitan Democracy. The book on Cosmopolitan Democracy, edited with Henning Ottman, rounds out their trilogy on the contemporary issues of the rule by the people. In his reconsideration of the scope and aporias of cosmopolitan democracy, Barišić comes to the final verdict that the idea of cosmopolitan democracy is a noble-hearted vision that, for the time being, contains a flaw of appropriate realization in the present realpolitik. On the other hand, he argues for the unique historical project of the European Union as one of the successful attempts to transfer the content of human rights protection on the transnational level. Publications: Dialectica običajnosti, The Dialectics of Social Morality. Zagreb, 1988. Welt und Ethos, World and Ethos. Wurzburg, Königshausen and Neumann, 1992. Filozofija prava anti-Starčevića, The Philosophy of Law of anti-Starčević. Zagreb, 1996. Metaphysica Cute or The Metaphysics of Morals. Immanuel Kant. Ed. Introduction. Transl. By Dražen Karaman. Zagreb, Matica Hrvatska, 1999. Otvorna pitanja povijesti Hrvatske filozofije, Open Issues of the History of the Croatian Philosophy. Ed. Zagreb, 2000. Demokracija I Etika, Democracy and Ethics. Ed. Zagreb, 2005. Demokracija na prekretnici Democracy at Crossroads. Ed. Zagreb, 2014. Deliberative Democracy. Ed. With Henning Ottman. Baden-Baden, Nomos, 2015. Ideal Vladivine Puka. Uvod filozofiju demokracije, The Ideal of the Rule of the People. Introduction to the Philosophy of Democracy. Zagreb/Split, 2016. Demokrati und Öffentlichkeit, Democracy and the Public. Ed. With Henning Ottman. Baden-Baden, Nomos, 2016. Cosmopolitan Democracy. Ed. With Henning Ottman. Baden-Baden, Nomos, 2018.